This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
I am John, this is my Zur the Enchanter EDH deck. Alright, so this is Zur the Enchanter. He's my general. If you guys don't know, every time he attacks, you can just search for an enchantment that costs 3 or less out of your deck and put it right into play, which is definitely a very powerful effect, and yeah, we'll get to it. Dark Confidant is in here for card advantage, just good creature. Drawing extra cards is always good. Tidespout Tyrant. Every time you play a spell, you can bounce permanent. Usually the typical way to win with this guy is you play a 0-mana artifact that taps for mana, bouncing another 0-mana artifact taps for mana, you get infinite storm, infinite mana, kill someone with Tendrils of Agony, something like that, you know? Magus of the Future, all the future effects are in here. Again, card advantage. It's essentially drawing more cards. Trinket Mage to go get top, Soul Ring, Crypt, Lion's Eye Diamond. Generally just either the enabler for the top combos or extra mana. Snapcaster Mage, rebuy your tutors, rebuy a mana drain maybe, just in there for value. Jace the Mind Sculptor typically just brainstorms, usually dies within a turn. Not much else to say there. Tezzeret almost never uses any ability but the -X ability. Sometimes untaps to get mana, but usually is just -0 right away to go get a mana artifact, and then maybe 4 to go get the Goblin Charbelcher later, or -2, -3 to go get one of the Monolith effects if you have Zur in play to get Power Artifact to go infinite. Solitary Confinement got added in as a, like, if you can't win the first turn you attack with Zur, or like you fear somebody might be able to kill you within the turn, you drop this, the next turn you discard and you go get this card, Necropotence, which is really the reason to be playing Zur. You get to play Necropotence as your general, more or less is the joke here. Very powerful card, lots of card advantage. Once you draw like 10 extra cards, it's just really, really dumb. Phyrexian Arena is just another one you can go tutor for if you already have Necropotence in play, let's say, and you just want one more. Just card advantage. Power Artifact is going to go infinite with any of the Monolith effects like Grim Monolith, Basalt Monolith. That's pretty much it. Essentially reduces their untap cost by 2. So they tap for more than they untap for. Go infinite, get infinite. Tutors are, we have Imperial Seal, it's essentially Sorcerer Speed Vampiric Tutor. Grim Tutor is Demonic, costs 3, lose 3 life. Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor. Muddle the Mixture transmutes for a lot of cool stuff. Also randomly protects your spells, I guess, if you need to transmute it. Cool interaction is you can transmute it and then Snapcaster it back later. Kind of cool thing. But transmute for 2 goes against Grim Monolith, a few other cards. Mystical Tutor to go get whatever, protection, another tutor usually. Fabricate to go get either your Grim Monolith or your Goblin Charbelcher usually. Merchant Scroll usually goes and gets Stroke of Genius once you have infinite mana, but can also get Brainstorm. Yawgmoth's Will. Yawgmoth's win. Whatever. You win the game when you cast the spell. Mind's Desire. Typically Mind's Desire for 6 wins the game. The card quality in the deck is just that high. Mana Severance is a kind of funny one. 1 of blue, you can search your library for any number of land cards and exile them. So you take all the lands out of your deck, which makes your Goblin Charbelcher, once you get it into play, just kill people. Maybe if they have infinite life or something, it's not going to kill them, but you get the point. Tendrils of Agony, again, you can get infinite storm and infinite mana. You just cast this and everyone at the table loses. Into the cantrips now, I've included Preordain, Ponder, and Brainstorm. And And next we have some more just raw card advantage spells. Our Ad Nauseam. Curve on this is pretty low. You can generally like end step this, draw like an extra 15-20 cards on tap and win. Time Twister is legal for some reason. Just a draw 7. It's insane. Frantic Search is pretty good, especially if you have the High Tide engine going, or some lands that tap from more than one. I think there's only Ancient Tomb now that Academy's banned. But it's just free loot twice. It's pretty good. Factor Fiction, just good card advantage. Stroke of Genius is another way to win with infinite mana. If you're playing single player, you just stroke them. If you are playing multiplayer, just stroke yourself, and like there's actual no way to lose at that point. Time Spiral is another draw 7. This one's theoretically free. Almost never have 6 lands in play though, so it doesn't usually untap all of them. Or it usually untaps all of your lands, but doesn't untap all 6. Thirst for Knowledge, just another card draw spell. Plenty of artifacts to pitch in this deck, like any of the, Moxen type of stuff, talismans, stuff like that. Recurring Insight is, I guess, kind of a pet card to me. I put it in every blue deck. It's almost always absurd. You just draw a ton of cards. Rebound almost always draws like into something absurd on the next turn. Just a decent spell to tap out for early in the game. You have enough artifacts where like generally players still have 4 or 5 cards in their hand, and then it's funny watching between that turn when you cast it and your next turn how like frantically people try and dump their entire hand into play for no reason. It's just kind of neat. Force of Will, Mana Drain, and Pact of Negation are the counter spells on here. Just enough to protect what you're trying to go off with. I've also included some discard spells. Obviously much better in 1v1 if you're playing a multiplayer game. Just target the blue guy, I guess. Or whoever's going to kill you, I guess. Duress also. I've included some bounce spells. I started playing against people that were like main deck, or like playing like Stranglehold, just really irritating cards that no one should ever play because they're not fun. So you need to find a way to bounce them. So we have Chain of Vapor. Snap gets rid of, let's say like a Gothic Teague or a Thalia if someone's playing like the Hate Bear deck because they want to be spiteful. And it makes some mana. You can bounce your own Snapcaster and replay it. If you have High Tide, you start netting mana. Rebuy Snapcaster to get more tutors. It's pretty good. And Rushing River deals with any 2 permanents. You can sack a land to kick it. It's 2 and a blue, bounce something, sack it. It's bounced 2 things. So pretty good value. Turnabout is in here. Pretty much just makes mana. If you have a lot of artifacts in play, you can net mana off that way. If you have a bunch of lands in play, you can net mana. If you have High Tide, it's very easy to net mana. You can also just tap your opponent's creatures if they're like gonna kill you. So decent there. High Tide. I debated on this card for a while, but when I draw it, it usually is at least a ritual that adds 3 to 4 mana. Lots of islands in the deck. I've kept the basic count high, and almost all islands specifically because of High Tide. It's just been good enough as a tutor, or not a tutor, a ritual into, something bigger, broken, like Tidespout Tyrant, something like that. Dark Ritual, just +2 mana. Mind Over Matter is another good way to go infinite with, well, not infinite, but more broken with Goblin Charbelcher. Like if you can only Charbelch one person, it's a little less exciting. You at least get to kill the person that might kill you or might stop you. But this just pitch a card on tap, go again, pitch a card on tap, go again, and just kill the rest of the table. Nets mana if you have something that taps for more than 1 mana, like even just a land, you can pitch a card to add a mana to your mana pool. Essentially, it's just pretty good value. Future Sight, extra cards. Now to the artifacts, we have fast mana. We have LED. LED is an interesting one. You can sack it in response to tutors to just have the mana to do whatever you need to do with it. Activates Charbelcher. It doesn't matter if your hand is gone. Also, if your hand is very, very loose, just had a bunch of mana in it, or like nothing really good, and you just want to go for the Zur kill, this allows you to play like turn 2 Zurs pretty easily. Just because it doesn't matter if you discard your hand, Zur's in the command zone, go for it. Chrome Mox, just fast mana, Lotus Petal, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, and these are pretty common. Basalt Monolith is in here because it goes infinite with Power Artifact. It's also just a battery for 3 mana essentially, which is decent. Same with Mana Ball, just extra mana. This also goes infinite with Power Artifacts. This one is usually what I'll go get with Tezzeret if I'm on that plan. It's just 1 less counter removed from Tezzeret. Lotus. I have the blue Signets, Azorious and Dimir, and same thing with the Talismans, blue, white, and blue, black. Helm of Awakening allows you to do the Future Sight, Leyline, Future Sight, Helm of Awakening, Sensei's Divining top loop, where you can play the top for free off the top of your deck and then tap it to draw a card, and you can just keep repeating this process. So you get to draw your deck. Cloud Key is essentially the same type of effect, but instead of all spells, it's only your spells, and you get to choose artifact, creature, enchantment, sorcery, or something else. Doesn't really matter. It almost always names artifact just for that same loop. Sapphire Medallion is just like a permanent blue ritual. Makes like turn 3 Jaces more common, even turn 2 Jace off of like Island, Soul Ring, this thing, like stuff along those lines. Sensei's Divining Top, obviously just very good. We have it to find cards we need, but it also goes infinite with that the Helm or key loop with a Future Sight, and if you have Mind Over Matter, you can tap it to draw a card while that's on the stack, discard, and essentially you get to swap your hand for however many cards you had in your hand off the top of your library, so you get to cycle your hand for free, which is pretty good value. Charbelcher is one of the win conditions. Obviously, doesn't really work very well without Mana Severance. I have, however, just cast this and started targeting things, seen what happens. Usually, you don't need to do stuff like that. You have enough redundant tutors to find exactly what you need. Pithy Needle is in here as a Trinket Mage target. It stops things like Glenelender Archmage, which is just a giant pain in the ass. It's very hard to win through that card. Some of like the mono blue control decks are pretty hard to beat. If you have a quick hand and they only have so many like actual cheap counter spells, you can usually force through Duress and a Force of Will on your part to get whatever you need to go off. But this helps for situations like that, or just like a lot of generals have activated abilities. It's just good in that regard. Card draw. Lands, again, keeping with the mainly island theme, I chose to include Sea and Tundra, but no Scrubland. Because the deck is almost all blue, there's 1 white card, a few black tutors. Keeping with pretty much every land needs to tap for blue or have some good effect. So, filter lands, again, chose just the blue ones with the off color. Shock lands, same story. These are the M10 duels, I guess you call them. So Drowned Catacomb and Glacial Fortress. Fetch lands, I'm thinking about adding more, but there's at least the 3 on-color fetches. And I've also included 1 additional blue. I might include the Misty Rainforest as well, just because it's really just, it's free. You get to get more access to your Underground Sea or your Tundra if you need it. City Rest, just solid land. Command Tower, obviously. This is in here mainly to Trinket Mage for if you just need another land. Or you can discard it to Thirst for Knowledge, something along those lines. Tezzeret untaps it. Tezzeret searches for it for 0. Just decent lands. Miko Koro, I've included just it's a land that gives some card advantage. Generally, making your opponents draw cards is irrelevant. Their cards are just worse than yours, so you just win. Ancient Tomb is more fast mana, allows a little bit faster, more broken plays. Basics, there's 1 swamp and 12 islands. So we have a swamp and islands. So that's that.
Thanks for watching CMDR decks. Please subscribe and favorite.